We're Dr. Sandra Southard, Dr. Fern Webb, Dr. Juan Luque, and Dr. Lourdes Vazconde Garbonate, co-leads for the Community Outreach and Engagement Corps of the Florida, California Cancer Research, Education, and Engagement Health Equity Center. CaRE2 is a bicoastal cancer research and training center that brings together researchers from Florida A&M University, the University of Florida, and the University of Southern California.
We CaRE2 Health Equity Center is funded by the National Cancer Institute Center for Reducing Cancer Health Disparities. CaRE2 is committed to eliminating cancer health disparities and promoting health equity among Black, African American, and Hispano and Latino adults living in California and in Florida.
Our center focuses on 3 specific cancers: prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, and lung cancer. We want to welcome you all who are listening to our We CaRE2 podcast.
Now we would like to introduce you to our host for this first season, Pastor Rhonda Holbert. She's a breast cancer survivor and an advocate, and the founder and CEO of the Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, which is a nonprofit multicultural organization available to anyone affected by cancer and their families. Pastor Rhonda also serves as one of our CaRE2 Community Advisory Board members.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to CaRE2 Podcast, Embracing Life Together, a conversation on cancer in the Black community. Thank you for joining us as we explore the journeys of resilience and triumph with Black cancer patients and survivors. In each episode, we delve into a unique challenge faced by the Black community in dealing with cancer and illuminate the intersections of race, health, and hope. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, our topic is food desert, and we have our guest speaker, Malcolm Bevel, who is a doctor, but he's going to allow me to call him Malcolm today. Hello, Dr. Malcolm. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Simply marvelous. Can you just take a moment right now and introduce us to you so that we'll know from whence our information comes?
Perfect. My name is Malcolm Bevel. I'm an assistant professor at the Georgia Cancer Center at Augusta University. I'm a part of the Cancer Prevention, Control, and Population Health Program, where we're focusing on population health and cancer disparities within underserved communities, not only in the state of Georgia, but beyond. And so my focus is on social determinants of health and how they play a role in obesity, obesity-related cancers, specifically walkability in neighborhoods, food deserts, and food swamps, and how the food environment plays a role in obesity and obesity-related cancer mortality in this country.
I am the founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, which is an organization that I launched after I finished my cancer journey back in 2001.
Very nice. Well, it's an honor.
Not a problem. So today, as we enter our conversation, one of the first things I want to know is what in the world is a food desert anyway? I hear it a lot, and people toss it around, and I'm like, I live in LA. This is not a desert. So what in the world is a food desert?
I understand. So there's actually a couple of terms that I'd like to define today. A food desert is, according to the USDA, where you live more than 1 mile from a grocery store in an urban area or more than 10 miles away from a grocery store in a rural area. I'm in the state of Georgia right now. I work in the state of Georgia. I live in South Carolina. And so we have a lot of rural areas. I'm sure California and a bunch of other states in the United States have a lot of rural land too. So that's why the USDA has defined it as such. However, I believe that the more accurate term about the food environment and the food environment that the majority of African Americans live in is called a food swamp or experiencing food apartheid. So the only difference between a food desert and a food swamp are the types of foods we have access to. A food swamp is where you live more than 1 mile from a grocery store and you have more unhealthy or pro-inflammatory based foods accessible to you. So what do we mean by pro-inflammatory unhealthy foods? We mean your corner stores, your convenience stores, your liquor stores, and fast food restaurants. And so that is the food environment that we are studying right now in environmental health, as well as epidemiology and public health.
Now that clearly can sound like a desert.
Yes.
The term that we know, having things so far away or just not having things that are healthy enough to be consumed. So how do food deserts impact community, especially in terms of access to fresh and nutritious food?
So the impact that it has been long felt, and we believe for quite a few decades now, if not longer. It can help contribute to food insecurity, for example. That's a hot button topic that's going on in the United States right now. It can also contribute to various health outcomes. What my team and I are doing at the Georgia Cancer Center is we're looking at the association between food deserts, food swamps, and obesity-related cancers within the United States. There are 13 different types of obesity-related cancers, and they account for 40% of all cancers in the United States. So those type of cancers include prostate cancer, liver cancer, multiple myeloma, postmenopausal breast cancer, and there's some evidence that early onset colorectal cancer is attributed to obesity as well. And as within our community, we have extremely high rates of obesity, overweight, and obesity status. We believe that there's a correlation between the food environment, obesity, and obesity-related cancers. And then we believe that those disparities continue to persist among African Americans. And so those are the ways in which the food environment can affect you. It can affect your access. It can affect physical health, quality of life, and mental health, quality of life, as well as obesity and obesity-related cancer risk.
Oh my goodness. But those kinds of cancers that you just mentioned, those are the ones that we pretty much have the high mortality.
Correct. Black women are at least 1.5 times more likely to succumb to breast cancer, especially postmenopausal breast cancer. Black men, about a twofold increased risk of dying from prostate cancer. Black men and women collectively, what we've actually found with some research, so stay tuned for those publications. We found that Black men and women who live in the worst food swamp environments, they're having at least a 60% increased risk of dying due to early onset colorectal cancer. So we're finding some market health disparities associated with this and associated with the food environment, how it plays a role.
How can we do something about this? It's a matter of we live where we live and we are limited to the choices in many cases in the areas where the food deserts or the food swamps, transportation is limited. We don't have time to drive all the way to the west side in LA or, whatever the case might be. What in the world can be done about it? What can we do?
Well, one of the solutions that we're hypothesizing is getting back to the roots of things, pun intended. What we would like to promote are healthy lifestyle living amongst our people, specifically with gardening. I grew up in Iowa. I know it's a funny thing when I talk with people, because they're like, there are Black people in Iowa. And it's like, yes, there are Black people in Iowa, y'all. It's okay. And so I've lived in the South since 2004. So they're always amazed when we hear about the prevalence of African Americans in the state of Iowa. But growing up in Iowa, a lot of rural land, a lot of country land. And so I remember my grandfather having a garden. He grew collards, he grew peppers, rooted vegetables, things of that nature. My grandmother jarred vegetables, made jams, things of that nature. So that's what I grew up on. My mother had a garden, and she's actually revamped her garden since her children have become young adults. And I think because we live in quite literally and figuratively a microwavable society, we've kind of gotten away from that. It's easier to go get the dollar menu or the 4 for $4 or the biggie bag 5 or any of those other items. But what people don't understand is that is going to cost you in the long run. So it seems cheap now, but it costs you in the long end. So my answer is twofold. Helping people realize what the actual cost is of eating unhealthy versus healthy. Yes, it seems more expensive up front, but if you're able to find deals on things like bagged veggies or even frozen veggies and fruits, it'll help you in the long run. But also, let's get back to our roots and consider gardening. So whether it be in-home gardening, rooted plants, small pots, things of that nature, but then also greenhouse-based community gardening, or what we're doing at the Georgia Cancer Center, using vertical gardens that are hydroponically fueled, or AKA our micro farms. And so those are some of the solutions we've hypothesized thus far.
So who's teaching this stuff? Who's teaching me how to garden? I heard you say vertical, but depending on the size of my family, vertical might not be enough.
Well, the amazing thing about the technology with one of these vertical farms is that they can grow about 400 to 900 pounds of food in a calendar year. And those aren't just herbs and spices. You can grow larger lettuce-based produce, such as butter crunch lettuce, kale, mustard greens, of which we've actually seen with our proof of concept with a small grant that I have. And so you're able to grow that indoors. Now, the catch is one of our indoor units is pretty expensive. And so I do understand that. You have actually smaller units that I've seen on Amazon or other outlets where you could still get microgreens and things of that nature and grow your own produce. We also encourage people to look at rooted vegetables and other produce that produce seed. If you have seed and you continuously have seed, make sure to save that seed so then you can replant it and regrow. So then it's cyclic at that point in time. We have farmers here at the Georgia Cancer Center that we partner with, such as Ebony Tree Farms and Studio Farmers Incorporated, that are more than willing to teach people ag tech as well as indoor farming or outdoor farming. So then, like I said, we can get back to the roots of how we used to be.
Okay.
People think of farming and think of the dirt and everything, but there are different ways you can go about it. Like I said, our indoor unit, minimal fuss. We use coconut fiber pods to plant our seeds in and propagate them. We believe that coconut fiber is actually adhering better to our nutrients and the seedlings as well. And so again, there's proof of concept with that. And so, like I said, instead of having a 4-tier system that is about as big as a bookshelf, you can have something that's small that you can sit on your countertop and everything, grow you some fresh herbs, grow some other produce, some small leafier greens and things of that nature, and supplement the food that you are able to purchase. And so sometimes you don't have to get your hands dirty when you do things like this.
So my other concern would be, I can't keep a rose alive, when I just don't have the green thumb so how am I going to be wasting a lot of money trying to learn how to do this, or are the instructions really that easy?
The instructions for vertical farming, in my opinion, are actually really easy. In terms of our daily maintenance with one of our micro farms at the Georgia Cancer Center, about 15 to 30 minutes a day, we've experienced about 70 to 80% of yield regarding produce that is edible. And so that's a very high success rate for us. So it's really not that hard to maintain one of these things. I am pretty much a novice at this myself, fully admitting it. This is the first time I've worked with an indoor unit like this, but we had 10 successful harvests since we installed our unit back in July of last year. And we're also not only using it for research to determine self-efficacy among our cancer patients, but we're also doing community outreach with it. So there's a church here in Augusta, Georgia called Kingdom Full Gospel, where we've supplemented their meals program every Wednesday with some of our produce. And we're happy to say that we've fed over 100 families in at least 3 or 4 of the harvests that we worked with that. It's very humbling to know that this unit and what we're doing is actually helping the needy. And so we want to continue to not only educate the people on eating healthier, but then also take ownership with what they grow as well. And so if they're willing to work with one of these units, then, I think we're accomplishing just more than feeding people, feeding their bodies. We're also feeding their minds.
And feeding their soul. So if I think about, because I know we're talking about the desert, we're gonna get back to the desert and the swamp. Yeah. But when I think about saying, okay, I'm willing to try, I want to start growing something. Let's start with something, because I don't cook with basil, because I don't know what to do with it. Right. So
Right.
What would you recommend would be a low cost start? Because remember in school, they had you do the egg carton and they had you put the bean in and watch the bean grow. I remember that.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I like that, but it was always better when I looked at somebody else's. But if we could think low cost and a suggested item to begin with, just to begin to experiment with it and actually eat it, that's the other side. I could grow it, I'll sell it. But how do we grow it at a good cost? What's a good one to start with that we would actually consume?
I would actually start with butter crunch lettuce. Iceberg lettuce and other types of lettuce types may not have as many nutritional properties as we would hope, but the butter crunch lettuce that we've grown within our unit has been very successful. It not only can be used in salads or sandwiches, but you can use the butter crunch lettuce in some of the healthier and larger leaves as wraps. And so when people want to talk about cutting their carbs and things of that nature, I know in California, y'all got some of the best tacos out there. I was at a conference in San Diego last year, and the street vendor tacos were phenomenal. I've went to school in Texas, and so I've had Tex-Mex and Mexican food there. But it's something about San Diego tacos were phenomenal. Well, if you wanted to cut carbs, you can use the butter crunch lettuce, and you can have your filling. And again, it's all about portion control. So I would say starting with butter crunch lettuce is actually relatively easy for anybody to do, and it yields better properties than from what we've seen in terms of your typical iceberg lettuce.
So we're talking about a 1x1, or we talking about a 3 foot by 3 foot kind of container
So
to
currently
grow
our
butter?
so currently our unit that we would actually encourage people to have at like community centers and things of that nature, maybe not necessarily individual homes, but at community centers, our unit, it's about a 3 foot by 4 foot working space. So again, it's about as large as a bookshelf is what we're talking. And it's a 4-tier system from Sanan Bio. However, if there are smaller units, no bigger than I would say an air fryer, your typical standard air
Okay.
fryer.
Yeah.
One of those smaller indoor units would be about as big as an air fryer, as I'm looking at one right now. And so, again, but you could still now, obviously, the smaller units mean smaller yield of produce. But let's think about it in terms of what you need. If it's difficult for people, especially if you live in lower socioeconomic status areas, to choose between your medications or your food, right? But if you're constantly producing seed, at least again, it's about supplementing what you can afford. So let's say you could get, the frozen veggie, but you have this micro farm. Now you're just supplementing what you have. So you have lettuce, you have cilantro, you have parsley, you have other herbs to spice everything up, if you will. And so, again, this is about empowering people to getting back to our roots and to supplementing what you can currently afford. In terms of governmental programs, and actually one of our farmer partners had just informed us, you can get seed with food stamps. And not a lot of people know that. And so you can get seed anywhere. You can get seed at most stores these days with food stamps. That's how one of our farmers has purchased some of his seed to supplement things that he would need in terms of his growth and the supplies that he needs. So along with the empowerment, we also do it's cliche to say, but education is a big piece of this, informing the people of the resources that they have, whether you're in California or whether you're in the state of Georgia, South Carolina, letting the people know what you can receive as a part of resource allocation that we would like to do. So then again, they can feel empowered.
So as I think about freshness, is it better to get something from a farmer's market or from the grocery store?
Ooh, that's a fun question. So again, I'm in the South, so my bias is gonna go towards the farmers markets. It's people that, especially if you could do your research on the farmers that you're working with, if you could determine if they're organic certified, there is certification within different states and I believe federal, if I'm not mistaken, to determine if they're organic certified. Because they can slap organic on a label, especially in the
Right.
stores, but is it truly organic? Are they adding pesticides? What are the additional things that they're adding? And that's why also reading your labels is important in the grocery store. But with a farmer, vast majority of the time, you know where it's coming from. It's coming straight from the ground, straight to the table. And so again, but even still, you can determine if they're organic. So like I said, the farmers that we're working with down here in terms of freshness. So for example, muscadine grapes. We would like to partner with some muscadine grape farmers here in Hepsville, Georgia, which is south of Augusta. And I've been to their farms. You can't get much more fresh than just going straight to the source of a good muscadine grape. And so my bias is farmers markets at this point in time.
Okay. So I actually heard a question of what is fresher, fresh or frozen?
To my knowledge, fresh is fresher because it's right then and there. Frozen, there's a different process with freezing it, especially in the store. Now, if you were to freeze it yourself, that's inherently different. And if you knew how to, if you know how to freeze or know how to actually store your herbs, for example, some of the herbs that we've grown within our micro farm, they actually last longer. Like you could package it, but if you leave it open within your refrigerator, it actually lasts longer. Right now, I have some Thai basil in my refrigerator right now because, again, we're going through these processes. We're looking at different recipes that we can promote to the Black community. And one of the suggestions from Ebony Tree Farms is when you leave your Thai and your Italian basil open, but in a Ziploc bag, the freshness has lasted much longer. Off of one of the batches that we actually harvested, she had basil left over for approximately a month to 2 months. So it's also knowing how to actually properly package and store your produce as well.
So this is a huge area of education that needs to take place.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's not just eat healthy, but finding out how to eat healthy and what you can do on your own in order to make that happen and to fit into that budget.
Yes, ma'am. And that's why we at the Georgia Cancer Center are looking to promote healthy lifestyle interventions so then we can teach the people from A to Z how you can live a healthier lifestyle. So it isn't just about the growing of the produce and the eating of the produce. It's properly storing, it's properly freezing, it's juicing, it's different recipes that we can take, different Southern classics or soul food, if you will, putting a healthier vegetarian or vegan spin on them. It's holistic, it's comprehensive, because that's what our people need.
Wow. Okay. All right, let's kind of bring it back.
Right. Ain't no wrong
Bring
with
it
that.
back a little bit. So, are there specific cancers that are closely linked to poor nutrition?
So I would argue the obesity-related cancers are linked to poor nutrition. There are specific cancers that are such as postmenopausal breast cancer, again, prostate, liver, kidney, early onset colorectal cancer. Those are linked to poor nutrition. And again, poor nutrition is linked to food insecurity and potentially these food environments that we live in. We're still looking into the research on that. But yes, multiple cancers are linked to poor nutrition.
But why? It's like we don't want to say that it's only poor nutrition, because
Of
we
course,
realize
right,
that
right.
hereditary is a risk factor. Sometimes it's age and other histories in your family. But for those that are related to poor nutrition, is it that I'm just eating McDonald's, or am I doing a combination of things? And like back in the day, everybody go to Big Mama's house on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because everything was cooked at home, nice and fresh, everything, and very good. But maybe not always cooked as healthy as it could have been. But so you have that one day, but then you're not doing so good the rest of the week, right? So is it that I'm just straight out fast fooding it, or that I have a combination, depending on my situation? Maybe I'm not in a position to start growing my own food. Maybe I don't have enough money to go and buy the fresher organic items. What can I do?
So it's a mix of things. So some of the more processed foods like processed sugars, processed fats, meats such as pork, even red meats that we have linked to higher risk of cancer. And it's mainly about the portions in which you eat. Here in America, for some reason, we think that bigger is better, a lot more is better. And unfortunately, even though sometimes we all like to splurge from time to time, if you do that consistently enough, you're just putting yourself at higher risk, mainly because your body isn't meant to process things at such a high volume in the realm of unhealthy foods. For example, we're also looking at inflammation within the body. We talk about inflammation more of acute infections, right? So if you get a cut or a scratch or something like that, your body's automatically trying to clean out all the germs and things of that nature, right? And so we talk about acute inflammation. Well, there are different inflammatory biomarkers that set off triggers within your body that allow those acute infections to heal quicker. To combat it, such as CRP, C-reactive protein, interleukin 6 or IL-6, or tumor necrosis alpha or TNF alpha. Well, what we're now looking at in our field of epidemiology is that those particular inflammatory biomarkers are now linked to more chronic inflammatory responses. So now the responses within our body, within those three markers alone, are longer, are prolonged, are more severe, maybe even linked to obesity. And then within the environment of your body, then the cells can't break down. And when your cells don't break down, that's when the cancer possibly builds up. So again, it's about how much you eat, the types of meat you eat, the ways that you cook it. Example, if you fry something, you might be breaking down the chemical composition of it. So then it's not originally what it was. And if you're frying constantly, that may not be the best thing. Baking is probably more preferred. You can grill, but I know people talk about, I like the hot dogs black, or I like my chicken, with a little bit of char on it. But that char produces, again, you're changing the chemical composition of your produce or even your vegetables. and those produce carcinogens or cancer-causing agents. Especially if you're working with open flame, but if you're working with charcoal, or even if you're working with gas, all this is connected. And so educating people in terms of the healthier ways to do these things. Again, if you want to have protein in your life, it's better to bake, broil, grill briefly, but never charbroil, reduce your frying and things of that nature. Again, you want to keep the chemical composition of your produce or your meats as close to what they originally were. In some of our healthy lifestyle interventions, we also talk about sugar intake. Now, we crack the joke in our community all the time. We got a sweet tooth. It's like, man, I got a taste for something sweet. But we need to reprogram our minds instead of going for red velvet cake or brownie or some ice cream. Let's
Peach
reprogram it.
cobbler.
Peach cobbler. Oh, goodness gracious. Peach cobbler is a weakness. But instead of that, like shameless plug, but like pineapples. I have a jar of pineapples right here. Because if I have a taste for something sweet, I would rather go healthy. And again, in knowing that the cost of this on the front end might seem more expensive, but on the back end, now I'm not having to pay for diabetes medication 10, 20 years from now, or hypertension medication 10, 20 years from now. All of this is interwoven. And as long as we're able to educate people about that and encourage them, hey, we get it, it's rough, and if you need resources, please reach out to your local health department, reach out to local epidemiologists at schools out there in California. There are phenomenal epidemiologists out there at the University of Southern Cal, as well as other institutions out there. Reach out to them and see what they're doing out there. Because even though we're seeing that the food environment, in what we found at the Georgia Cancer Center, the food environment seems to be worse in the South because of how things are built. That's just at the county level. But there are people that live in these counties, and then there are pockets within these counties, like census tract, where people are more affected. I'm sure you have that in California, in different cities like LA, Oakland, and places, and San Diego, and places like that. And so encouraging the people that live in these certain pocket areas, let's reduce the calories, let's reduce the sugar sweetened beverages, the highly processed foods and refined grain products, get back to holistic eating as best as possible, and looking to different diets. For example, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and African diets have shown to reduce cancer risk within our field versus Western diets. Again, mixing up those different herbs and spices.
Would keto be in that or no?
Keto, yeah, possibly. But we're actually talking about like the flavor and the different types of diets. So we're looking at gyros, pita, hummus, things of that nature. Middle Eastern diets using different halal meats and things of that nature. Also, like I said, whole grains, chickpeas, things of that nature, fufu, African diets and things of that nature, and making them and just expanding our palates as well. And again, those diets have been proven right now, from what we've seen in our research, Mediterranean diets have been the best for people in terms of reducing your cancer risk. And just trying to encourage people to just try something new. For example, we've done some qualitative work here in the area, and we have people that, have never cooked healthy a day in their life. In the South, and, especially within our community, again, we have soul food. So, typically you got the collard greens with the fat back or the ham hock or the turkey necks. But we have a different recipe that we like to promote amongst our team. So we have a kale with cranberries recipe. You can stew it just like you do collards, as long as you're using organic vegetable stock, fresh garlic, fresh herbs in the kale, cranberries on the back end. You can stew it down. We've had older Black women who have never cooked healthy a day in their life eat an entire plate of this. And because we always have the hesitancy, right? With, oh, this is a new food. I don't know. I'm hearing about it. It's one of those superfoods and things of that nature. But it's all about flavor and connecting to our roots to be able to encouraging people to do this the right way.
And I'm one of those people that you probably need to blindfold me. And I'm sorry, blindfold me and just let me eat it. Don't give me the history of the food or what you did with it, because the reality, I don't really know how they fixed the soul food or the old menu, because I'm not a cook, right? So I didn't ask them about that level. So don't tell me about the new stuff. Just let me taste it,
right? And
then let me have it again, right? And real interesting. Yesterday I cooked something. Yeah, I cooked. It was I saw this recipe that looks so easy on Facebook on a one of those video reels, and it was cabbage, and it said it tastes better than pizza, and so pizza is my thing. So if it's, and I watched the little interview and if pizza being my thing, I just, okay, I could try this. And I literally cooked it for the household yesterday. It was easy. There was almost actually really no seasoning added other than marinara sauce. So it was
Mm,
cabbage, scrambled egg, marinara, and what else did I put on? And a little bit of mozzarella cheese. And if I say it, all I did was sprinkle salt on it, sea salt on it. That's
right.
literally just a sprinkle. Um, and cooked it the way they say cook it. And it was so flavorful. You know, you would have thought that I dropped a whole lot of Tony's seasoning in
Mhm.
it. But it's just learning how to do something, finding something that's easy, and then it has to taste good. It can't taste like cardboard. It can't
Absolutely.
taste like what, I need to add something else to this. If anything, some cayenne, right? But it was very delicious. And it wasn't that much marinara sauce on it. So, they put all kinds of stuff in the sauces. But you can get a healthier choice, the one that's best for you. And it wasn't Prego. I don't even know what it was, but I'm a Prego kind of kid.
Right.
But it's making those adjustments
Yep.
so that little by little you can work your way to a healthier eating habit. I don't even want to call it a diet, a healthier eating habit. So,
Absolutely. So I partner with, they're called Ebony Tree Farms. And so they're a new farming group from Ebony Tree Council and some of my community partners that I work with since December 2021. Mrs. Griffin has her own cookbook, and she just created something that I didn't think could be created, and it's completely vegan. You ever heard of sweet potato peach biscuits?
no.
So the thing that she tries to promote, like I said, it's about the flavor and connecting with our roots for our people. And so she has made a sweet potato peach biscuit that is completely vegan, tastes like grandmama's biscuits, but again, it's using the produce that we get from our farmers market here and the people that we partner with, as well as any of the herbs that we are growing within our micro farm.
Okay.
Again, so like you said, you can use the minimum amount of ingredients and the right amount of time and love to produce some of the most maximum flavor. I never thought you can use sweet potatoes and blend them up and stew them down and everything, put them in your batter. And again, everything that she does is 100% vegan. And right now, she's got so many recipes. And so shout out to Ebony Tree Farm, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Griffin. It's amazing to see what we do. And we would like to not only promote what they do, and there's a bunch of other people that are doing this. We just need to get these resources out to everybody who is willing to listen and hear. But yeah, sweet potato peach biscuits. I asked for some during Christmas and she made them, and then I'm still grateful for that. They are. It's because it gets to the point where if you flavor it correctly, you don't even want to go back to certain other things. I'm partial to chicken. I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I'm partial to
All
chicken,
right.
but there are many days I don't even want to eat meat because of some of the things that she's promoted for our community and some of the research that I've done myself. And so I'm fine with the salad, no protein or different types of protein, chickpeas, tofu. I don't mind tofu as long as it's done right, as long as it's flavored well, you know what you're doing, you could produce a lot of good things for the people. And then there's a switch that goes off in your head where you're like, you know what? I don't need this.
Right.
You need protein, you need sustenance, you need water, things of those things. You don't need, and I'm saying this objectively, we don't need meat to get the sustenance that we need. It's nice, it does help, but you don't need meat. You don't need processed sugars. You need sustenance. There's a difference.
Right. And one of the things I tell myself, make believe you already ate it. You know?
There you go. Now, the one thing,
Um,
it's funny we're talking about food. The one thing that we're trying to get more people to eat, what I've recognized, and this is anecdotal. I actually would like to do some research on this, but uh, we we have a concern of mushrooms in our community. It's a texture thing. I don't know what it is. I love mushrooms. You put a mushroom in my face, I'm gonna eat it. I love portobello mushrooms. I've grilled portobello mushrooms and like made a portobello mushroom pizza, things of that nature. But again, it's about the flavor, how you season it. Black sea salt gives you that minerally filling where you use black sea salt that substitutes so you'll taste like it's meat, but it's not meat. So not just regular sea salt, but black sea salt. Again, when you look these things up and when we get the resources to the people, then they'll start to see again, well, do I need this? I know I need sustenance, but do I need it through this way? Do I need the fried chicken? Do I want the fried chicken? Do I need Waffle House or do I want Waffle House? And so when you start shifting people's minds, then it starts to get better. Do I need In-N-Out burgers? I've heard of In-N-Out. I have not had it.
Oh,
I went,
kind of good.
again, you have alternatives in terms of vegetarian meats and vegan meats right now. But again, there are so many ways that we can promote this within our community that it will be flavorful but healthier for you, and that's just what we're trying to promote.
Exactly. And you talking about mushrooms. I have to we're shouting out. There's a Black African American couple that made mushroom bacon. I bought some. They were on Shark Tank. I actually bought some, and it smells like bacon, and it tastes a lot like bacon. It got crispy like bacon. And now I know it wasn't bacon, so it wasn't exactly, but the family was saying, "Hey, what? I didn't know we had bacon." Here, just have a piece. Again, just let people introduce people to it rather than telling them exactly what it is first.
I gotta look them up right now. Bacon out of mushrooms is hilarious. We're gonna figure that out.
It's shroom bacon is what it's called.
Gotcha.
So anyway, and you mentioned earlier a little bit about inflammatory biomarkers.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a new term for me,
Okay.
but it really sparks me, and I just want to see if there's any correlation. I'm actually a breast cancer survivor.
Okay.
Of inflammatory breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that related at all?
We're hypothesizing that it is, that there are inflammatory biomarkers within the blood that if they're triggered often, then it's more chronic as opposed to acute in nature. And like I said, within the tumor environment, those inflammatory biomarkers are set off so often, especially among your cells, including fat cells, that they're not dying quick enough. Because if cells don't die quick enough, then that's how cancer is produced, as you're well aware of. And so, yes, we are hypothesizing that inflammatory biomarkers such as interleukin and some of its derivatives like interleukin 6 or IL-6, C-reactive protein or CRP, and tumor necrosis alpha, when those are triggered and those are triggered more often than not, then there might be a correlation between those and different types of cancer. And so again, we're also seeing in what we've tried to study during my PhD program when I was at the University of South Carolina, as well as some of the research I'm trying to do now, is if we're able to control the food environment and we're able to control for people's diets and determine if those inflammatory biomarkers are triggered as often. Because again, if you're reducing obesity, then you're also reducing inflammatory biomarkers going off as well at the same time. So there could be a correlation, but if you're reducing obesity, then you're reducing your risk of obesity-related cancers, reducing the risk of the inflammatory environment being more chronic than it needs to be.
Okay, so the next question is, what initiatives or strategies are being implemented to address the impact of food deserts on cancer rates, and what role can the community play?
So as we mentioned, what we're promoting at the Georgia Cancer Center is healthy lifestyle interventions coupled with farming or community gardening with our vertical farms or with outdoor. We're partnering with the local community to determine areas such as Glendale here in the Augusta area, where if they have property that people would like to lease to us or donate in the eyes of cancer and cancer research community outreach, to be able to start using raised garden beds and growing for the community that way. We're also looking to partner with local politicians and other stakeholders to see what we can do. We're also actually going into communities and asking them, what do you all want? A part of the type of research that I do is the community-based participatory research approach. And in layman's terms, there's equal footing when it comes to me as a researcher and a person who is a civilian within the community that has a stake in the improvement of the community and the community's health. The way I see it, I don't move unless the community tells me to move. I don't know if it's the best science for myself, Dr. Bevel, to go to Cali and try to tell Californians what you want. I've never lived a day in California. I've literally visited once, and that was San Diego last year. I think it's disingenuous as researchers and people who are supposed to be doing it the right way to go into somebody's community, whether it be the Black community, Indigenous community, Hispanic, the Latinx community, any community in any state in the United States, and tell you what you want just because research might or might not tell me what it is, or I'm just spitballing. Quantitative and qualitative research needs to work in tandem to be able to produce the things that the people need. And a part of that is conversation with the people. So if I were to live in California, I'll go to the, hey, what do you all need? What do you all want? How can we get it to you? What are the best ways we can? What are the resources that you're lacking? Things of that nature. Then we do the research, collaborate with the people, promote healthy lifestyle. For example, like I said, in certain pockets, vertical gardening to supplement what they have, hydroponic fuel gardens, greenhouse-based community gardens, because the other catch is, in the way the weather's set up these days, you have to grow year-round. We eat 24/7, 365 unless we're asleep. Unless you eat in your sleep, which would be kind of funny. But you have to eat every day. The growth cycle, when in terms of farming, varies throughout the country. In the South, it's typically longer because we're usually hot about 10, 11 months out of the year. But depending on where you are in Cali, that might not be the case. Or depending where you are in America, whether it be the Midwest or the Northeast or the Mountain West, you don't have those growth cycles. Promoting other ways of farming, whether it be green-based community gardening or vertical gardens to supplement what people need because we need to eat year-round, is something that we're also promoting. And so that's what we're doing.
Awesome. And then what policies changes are needed to address the root cause of the food deserts and their impact on cancer rates?
So I'm actually going to take it a step further, and this is of my opinion. What we are hypothesizing is the food environments that we are seeing are being created. They may or may not be organic in terms of that creation. But if you look at how certain grocery stores tend to close in certain neighborhoods more often than others, trying to cite profit margins, but then you have the fast food restaurants popping up, also coupled with the systemic issues of gentrification and redlining. We believe, and it is of our hypothesis, that this is how food swamps are being created. We are of the opinion that it's going to take political courage for people to put their money where their mouth is in providing the people with the resources to get healthier produce. If there are a bunch of dilapidated houses, lots, things of that nature nationwide, instead of coming in and trying to put fancy houses there and making the prices skyrocket and then pushing people out, how about put a garden there? People want to eat. We've seen the studies where, contrary to popular belief, if the people have the resources, they will eat from it. Put a garden there. Put a garden there, put a new playground. Again, having the political courage to do the right thing by your constituents is what I believe is necessary. I don't have a specific policy here in the state of Georgia that I would change. Like I said, what I would encourage politicians to do is having that courage to putting your money where your mouth is for your constituents. And that if there is funding available, looking at those properties and looking at and getting qualitative research done to be able to do what is necessary. So small garden, a small, like I said, our micro farm, our 3x4 working space based micro farm, vertical farm that's indoors could produce upwards of 900 pounds of food in a calendar year. Now, what do you think you could do with a acre plot of land in California?
Right.
Sky's the limit, but you have to have the political courage to do so.
And then to get the community to buy in and get the community, let it be community run, that would be absolutely awesome. I do know that here in Los Angeles, I know of a church that has a community garden, Lincoln Memorial Congregational Church over on Arlington near, I was going to say Santa Barbara, near Martin Luther King.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's an example. And as long as they're open, the community can come and retrieve vegetables from the garden. Mm-hmm. And I know when they have events, they actually cook from their garden. And that's a marvelous thing. But so to be able to have a open area, I know over in near Martin Luther King Hospital, There's a community garden. I don't know the name of it, unfortunately, because we're trying to get people to those places. But there's a community garden where people can come and just choose the vegetables they want and go home and use them, right? The key word is don't just take them and pick them, use them, eat them,
Of course.
consume them as well. So the other thing you mentioned, though, you talked about research and community participatory research. And that's a good, excellent. I've served on several committees in LA that include the institutions and community. And the good thing about it is we go from the beginning all the way through the process. Where a lot of times in research, no matter what kind it is, the researcher gets what they need from community, but then we don't get a chance to hear. But there's more and more opportunities. I know USC does it, where there's partnership with community so that we can not just see it happen, but then have input on a regular basis on what's working, what's not working, what, like you said, what do we want, what do we need, and then somebody to actually say, hey, let's try it. That also helps to remove some of the biases, the historical information that we have in our minds about how things used to be to how things are being done right now in research, which is a huge advancement and a benefit to our community.
Absolutely.
Oh, this has been a great conversation.
I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
But you know what? But I'm ready. I'm in my mind, I am so ready to have the education. You know, I'm gonna plug Lincoln again, Lincoln Memorial Congregational Church. They have workshops, they have cooking classes. In fact, they actually will put together exercise, cooking, and education all in 1 hour, hour and a half, so that the community can do all of the things and show you how easy it is to do them all together. But I'm anxious to be able to see the educational workshops, not just on nutrition, but on how to make it happen. You know, if I buy bananas, you know, I'm going to buy them as green as I can get them. But
Absolutely.
by the time I've waited for them, they're all spotted black.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what can I do, you know, to learn how to schedule out and how to make eating better, bringing it closer so that we can have healthier cancer patients, healthier families, healthier communities, and thus a healthier country. So I think we're on our way,
Yes,
but I
ma'am.
think we still have a long way to go. And it's good to see that Florida's doing it, LA is doing it, and I
Yeah.
know there's some folks in between, but Dr. Malcolm, it's great to have you here with us today. Thank you so very much for taking your time out.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And until next time, choose life.